Welcome, everybody, to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we force our friends to watch movies we love, and then they destroy them piece by piece until we are shells of human beings. Today, we are doing True Lies, which is my pick. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Austin.
And I just want to say I'm so excited for you guys to see True Lies. One of, if not the best films of all time.
Oh, no.
Yes. Oh, I made that statement pretty loud. True Lies, I don't even know how to explain it.
No, I was going to say, what's your experience with True Lies, Jackie?
My experience with True Lies is one of those movies that I've always known and always had in my repertoire. I don't know the first time I saw it. I have no idea the conditions under which I saw it. But I do know that it was probably one of the first movies I saw that was that action-comedy combo. And that really resonated with me. I love an action comedy. This was also the first time I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger, maybe the only time I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger as somebody I liked. Like, I thought he had real personality in this movie. You guys might disagree, but I really enjoy him in this movie. So yeah, I just remember really liking it. I own the DVD. I watched it many times. Everyone in my family likes it. I texted them that I was watching it, and every single one of them responded with like praise emojis or explosion gifs. It was great. Everybody in my family is on the same page as I am, and that page says True Lies is number one.
Oh boy. This is going to be a fun episode.
You know, I've been bracing myself all day for you guys to just make me feel really bad. So let's
I was telling
get into
Jack
it.
I was telling Jen before we started that I've been having a very hard time organizing my thoughts on this. I don't think I've ever been so riled up after a movie, but then trying to actually figure out what my thoughts are. So this will be interesting. But Jen, have you seen this movie, or is it just me that hadn't seen this?
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I had seen it, but my memory on it wasn't as robust. So when rewatching it for this, I realized I only remember basically the second half of the movie,
right?
The more action-packed half. So I thought that was the whole movie. So the first half, I was kind of like, what's going on here? So it was interesting that for whatever reason, it is very long.
Oh,
and for whatever reason, as a kid, I just blocked out the parts I didn't like and only remembered the fun stuff.
So did you do a little summary guess, or was it just me that did one?
I didn't do an official summary guess, but if I had to, because like I said, I had a memory of this movie, I would have said, this movie is about Arnold Schwarzenegger being a spy, and his wife is Jamie Lee Curtis, and she gets accidentally wrapped up in a spy game, and they're kidnapped, and they have to fight terrorists.
Accurate. Okay. Very accurate.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it. I realized that I had definitely seen, like, promotional pictures for it. Like, I think I knew of it, but it hadn't clicked with me that it was this movie, if that makes sense. So, kind of as the movie went on, I was like, oh, this is this movie. But I hadn't seen it. So I have my little summary guess here. I really didn't know where to start. Because, okay, first of all, a lot of these movies that we've been picking, not only that I haven't seen them, I've just never heard of them. So I've been basing off of either the very top of the IMDb page or looking at the cover art. So that's what I usually base my summaries off of if I haven't really heard of a movie. So I guessed that a military unit of some kind is doing some sleuthy counterterrorism mission, and Arnold is hunting terrorists, but he is lying to his wife, and she doesn't know that he is hunting terrorists. There will be a lot of boring action scenes and gunfights and probably explosions.
Boring action scenes? Is that what I just heard? I don't even understand how that's such a not. Oh boy. It's an oxymoron, is what it is, but we can come back to that later. I just want to give a caveat before we start that this is one of those movies that I loved as a kid and still love, but I'm not saying there's not problems, okay? But I'm seeing it through the lens of this is the classic film that always brings me joy, okay? So don't get it twisted. It's not a perfect movie. It is just a great movie.
I would venture to say it's ultimately two movies. I don't know if you guys agree with me on this, but there's I mean, Jackie, do you want to take a shot at giving a brief synopsis of this movie? Because I will say I tried to explain it to Blake the other day because he also hadn't seen it, and I struggled.
Okay, no problem. So, True Lies. This is a story about Harry Trasker, who's a spy, but also a suburban husband and father who poses as a computer salesman. His family has no idea about his past as a spy for the past 17 years. The movie starts with him getting financial information about a man who funds terrorists. They trace the money and they find another terrorist name. They have a connection with a woman that Arnold Schwarzenegger has met while spying. Basically, he has to use a cover and try and find these terrorists, what they're doing with their money. He knows somehow they have nuclear weapons. He's tracking them down, but at the same time, he's realizing that his neglected wife has started what he thinks is an affair where what is she doing? She's hanging out with a man who is lying to her, claiming that he is a spy, when in fact he is a used car salesman. So Arnold is simultaneously trying to stop the terrorists and try to figure out what his wife is up to, and he uses his spy resources to handle both those problems. That's about it.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that also doesn't cover the whole second half where shit gets twisted. They end up on an island, Harrier jets, nuclear weapons. But we'll get there. We'll get to it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on in this movie because it is very long. It's about 2.5 hours. And
Yeah.
like Austin said, it's almost like in two parts where the first half is kind of the more spy half where he's spying on his wife and also trying to find a terrorist. And then the second half is like bananas. They're kidnapped on an island. There's explosions and nuclear weapons and a helicopter fight and all this stuff. So it really like could have been two different movies.
I mean, I would venture to say we could like put the first, I don't know, like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, take out the whole second hour, and then it picks back up where it left off. Like it's the middle section. Spoiler alert, that I'm going to have the most issues with.
No, it's perfect. It's great. It all fits together seamlessly in my mind. It's more convoluted than I want to explain in a summary, but it connects.
So, could we just dive into this? Because I know Austin's going to have trouble with the exact same thing that I had forgot was in this movie and had trouble with, which is the whole plot of Arnold Schwarzenegger spying on and tricking his wife.
Yeah.
Let's ease into it. Let's ease into it.
Because I know this is going to be a big talking point for us, because I was like, what the fuck?
What else are we supposed to talk about?
There's so much to unpack.
Let's ease into it. And my suggestion for that is let's just walk through what being married to this man would be like. Because he's a spy, where he's a secret agent. Essentially, James Bond kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
And he's been
Omega
married.
Spectre.
Yes, married to Jamie Lee Curtis. They have a daughter, Eliza Deshku. And, I mean, so we can assume that they've been together a long time. So you said he's been working there for 17 years, right? So he's been lying to them for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they think he's a computer salesman, which is a very 90s job to have. But
Totally.
but he's just, how do you go, what is day-to-day life in that household? Because, like, he's just lying to her every single day.
I don't think he's doing covert missions and ops every single day. Obviously, he does have a 9-to-5 office job.
Right.
So he does lie about his job, but who really knows that much about what people actually do at work? Like you guys don't know my 9-to-5 really necessarily, right? But yeah, fair.
I'm assuming you're not like traveling to the Middle East on a
I don't even really want to talk about it because I have to kill you, but let's just say maybe. But no, I mean, yeah, can't argue that point. He is lying to her and his daughter. And the only excuse I have for that is that it's part of national security. It's across the bear. It's what you do when you're a spy. And that's just that. You can't tell your family.
So I actually did research on this because I was curious. Can spies tell their spouses? And so I read several articles from former undercover CIA agents. I read the CIA website, MI6 website.
Wow.
There's a former CIA agent who wrote a memoir. And basically the gist is, yes, you can tell your family. You don't obviously tell them every single detail, of what mission you're working on, where you're traveling, who you're investigating, but you're allowed to tell your close family members that you work for the CIA or MI6 or whatever. And if you have to travel for that reason, you can tell them that you're traveling for that reason. The one guy who was a former undercover CIA agent who wrote a memoir called Left of Boom, he was unmarried, so he said he didn't have to worry about like a wife or anything. He didn't tell women he was dating, so it wasn't very serious. And he didn't tell his parents, but he did tell his brother because the CIA actually recommended that you have one point of contact in case you're killed in a mission, so that there's one family member who knows. So basically, all of this to say, Arnold Schwarzenegger could have and should have told his wife.
Okay, well, my only argument for that is that he very clearly works for Omega Sector, which might not follow the rules, because it's,
yes,
as the seal on the floor says, the last line of defense. So maybe the rules are different for the last line of defense? Question mark?
I do believe the rules are different for this spy agency in this movie for the point of plot.
Yes,
but
exactly.
In general, as a spy, you can tell your wife of 15 years or whatever. Like, you don't have to tell her what you're doing, but she doesn't have to think you're a computer salesman.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. It's not great. It's not kosher, but I also feel like it was, I don't know if I could be wrong and I don't know where this is coming from, but it seems like it was a common-ish theme in movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I think the whole trope of like a spy who can't tell people they're a spy is really common in movies. Like, that's the basis of this plot. It's the basis of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Like, it's totally common. So I accepted that part of it, even though it's through my research. I was kind of looking for my own curiosity. It's not realistic.
Right.
But I accepted it in the movie. Then I kind of had more issues when he thought she was having an affair and then turned into a full psychopath for like half an hour.
Yep. That might be the worst half an hour of a movie I've ever sat through.
Okay. Wow.
What I was saying before, how this feels like two movies, one of those movies isn't bad. It's kind of how I feel about this movie.
That's okay. I get what you're saying, honestly. But again, I have to say that I'm seeing it from the perspective of that I've always known and accepted this movie. So I don't really have a problem with it because this is just the movie.
Well, I feel like this is definitely one of those movies that, yeah, especially if you watched it as a kid, seeing it again with adult eyes, it's
and I just
you don't process things the same way. I think things come across very differently, obviously, if you're watching it as an adult versus when you're watching it as a kid.
Like I was saying, when I was a kid, I didn't even absorb that subplot necessarily. Like, I knew that she got roped into being a spy with him, but I couldn't remember why. So clearly I didn't either understand or remember the part where it's like, because he thought she was having an affair and then spied on her and then tricked her. So
well, first of all, she was having an
adult,
affair.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, like, it's not that part of it. It's more the spying and tricking where I was like, I forgot that that's how she got pulled into this, and that reads very differently as like an adult woman in 2020.
But I would say she wasn't having an affair, right? I mean,
an emotional affair.
I suppose. I think she thought she was doing. Or were we not supposed to buy that she thought she was doing a mission, that she was a secret agent?
Yeah, but it's exactly what the creepy car salesman said. Like, he gives them intrigue and adventure and drama and danger and emotion. Like, it was, I think she was emotionally invested.
I suppose.
She was titillated, if you will.
She was manipulated by everyone in this movie, so I guess so.
Yeah, car salesman, no doubt about it, he's bad. That's very clear. Yeah. The way he speaks, bad.
I didn't think that she was going out with the car salesman because she really thought she needed to help him with his mission. I thought she was just being excited and lured into his kind of charisma that she saw that he clearly didn't have because he's the worst character alive. So I definitely get what you're saying, Jackie. It wasn't necessarily an affair because she does kind of reject him sexually later on, but it was an affair in the sense that it was an emotional affair, that she wanted this kind of excitement in her life and this interesting, mysterious man. And so it was kind of heading down that road.
I suppose.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but she was also like lying about it, lying to her husband.
Yeah.
And meeting him secretly. So it was sketchy behavior. It was an emotional affair, in my opinion. About his spying and tricking her, obviously problematic, but doesn't it just make sense because he's a spy? Like, this is what he has available to him. This is the tools he can use, and he always has used whenever he's been faced with a problem. I don't see it necessarily as malicious. but he's
I
trying to
don't
get
think the
information. He's trying to figure out what's going on and what situation she's in. He doesn't try and even stop her until she's potentially in danger.
well, let's break this down. Let's explain what, because we didn't really go
Okay.
into specifics on what is actually happening. So Jamie Lee Curtis's character is having this emotional affair situation with Bill Paxton.
Paxton, yeah.
Just checking which one. He's this like sleazy used car salesman. She doesn't know he's a used car salesman. He has this scheme that makes women think that he's a secret agent, undercover spy kind of guy, and he lures them into his plan, ultimately to sleep with them and have an affair with them, whatever. So she's having this, I don't know, this back and forth with Simon, I think is his name. And Arnold Schwarzenegger overhears her talking on the phone with him and assumes that she's having an affair. So he uses his resources to illegally wiretap all of her calls and set up basically a sting operation to catch them, quote unquote, in the act. Right? That's essentially what's going down.
Okay, that's interesting. I never really thought of him trying to catch them in the act. I thought of him, always his end goal was to get Simon and threaten him, clearly. Like,
But I
basically,
don't
I
think
just
he
thought,
knew what Simon was doing. I think he thought she was having an affair. So I read it as he was setting this whole thing up to catch her having an affair with Simon.
okay, I just,
Is that not?
I don't exactly, I guess, I never thought about what his end goal was. I just thought his end goal was he knew she was going to meet him. He was playing it by ear as things were happening because it was all off the cuff, this operation, once he found out late at night that it was happening. So he got a helicopter to get surveillance, and then he saw them go to somewhere isolated. So he got a team and they pulled the wall off. That was weird. But I just don't know, think I ever thought that he was trying to catch her having sex. I think he was just trying to give her what she wanted, which was the adventure and the spy and the drama, right? Like, he even said that he was trying to give her what she was looking for, that she was lacking in their marriage.
Would it have been impossible for him to have had a conversation with her at any point?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's considering that this is a real world where it's a movie. I mean,
He seems
No, but
just
even in movies, people sometimes have conversations and not interrogate your wife pretending that you're someone else, letting her think that she has to choose between jail and a potentially dangerous mission, while also kind of slut shaming her, I guess, when they were asking her those questions as the ominous government agency being like, did you sleep with him? Is your husband not getting your rocks off anymore? Like, she doesn't know that that's Tom Arnold and Arnold Schwarzenegger. She thinks she's in serious trouble. Like, that's kind of cruel.
he's very okay violating all of her privacy. He feels justified doing it because, I don't know, he lies to her every day, but it's not okay if she lies to him once. And then, I don't know, this interrogation scene and the scenes following it, I don't even know how to talk about this.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, Austin, like, if you take this aspect out of the movie, I have zero problem with the movie. I have a fun
Exactly.
time. It's great. But this whole part with his wife, I'm like, oh dear God.
Well, and I think that there was a way to achieve the same goals, right? Like, even if you kept the part where he thinks she's having an affair, obviously not go the length that it went, but there was a way to, they still get kidnapped. They still have that kind of back and forth, or she doesn't know he's a secret agent. She thinks she's one, whatever. They could still kind of have that. And you wouldn't need to resort to psychological torment because that's basically what this is, and sexual assault. She's sexually assaulted twice in this movie, and that is just brushed over.
Yeah, there's also a part when they're discussing whether or not they should be doing the wiretapping. Or Tom Arnold, who at some points is kind of a voice of reason, where he's like, "Listen, we're spies. Sometimes our wives can't deal with that, all the secrecy and us not being around, and they have affairs. You have to just deal with it. Don't illegally wiretap." And at one point, he's like, "Okay, I'm calling us in. You're doing something really wrong. I can't let you do this." And then Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, then I'll tell people that you messed up that op because you were getting a blowjob. And I was like, wow, this movie sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't get why that sucks. It's funny.
My biggest, actually,
they're
even
bad
before,
spies. I mean, that's pretty clear. Tom Arnold's pretty gross. He is
yeah,
funny.
it's just that. It's just the gross aspect of it where I'm like, I feel like I just don't need that. But it was 90s, so
Yeah.
movies had that a little more.
Yeah, some of the language I could forgive as being of the time, but I really was struggling with how they talk about women in this movie. I was before it even got to Jamie Lee Curtis having an affair, like before that whole thing. I was already really struggling, and I just some of the ways. I know it was the '90s, but there was just some dialogue, and like Tom Arnold, I guess he was supposed to be the comedic, kooky sidekick. I didn't laugh at anything. I just found him gross. So I was having a hard time before the chaos happened.
Yeah, I laughed a lot. I found Tom Arnold to be charming. This is the one time he ever wasn't terrible in any movie. And I liked him a lot. He's crass and horrible, and I don't like a lot of what he says, but I thought he was very funny.
Yeah, I did not get that at all because then even later when Arnold Schwarzenegger is talking to Bill Paxton, and I know that he's supposed to be just reprehensible, right? I hope,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
We're supposed to hate him, but it
Yes.
didn't stick out at me because he was talking the same way Arnold had been talking the whole movie. So it didn't. That's why I was hoping. I
Can
was like,
you
I
give
don't
an
think I'm supposed.
example?
Well, let's see. Did I write it down? There's just the parts where I mean, some of this isn't too bad, but like just like the ditch the bitch. She's ready to bear his children. There's a line about having their hand up her skirt. There's my favorite line. I don't know if it's Tom Arnold or Arnold Schwarzenegger that says it, but this is the line that sent me over the edge. Was women can't live with them, can't kill them.
I thought that was really funny. He's a misogynist. Like, it's not
Yeah,
the same. That's the joke. It is a movie from the '90s. Like, you can't apply necessarily today's standards on every movie that was made in the '90s, right?
I don't think I am though, because I mean, this was criticized at the time for the same thing, so it's not like it was overall okay then. And I will give you there's a lot of language that I can overlook.
Sorry, I think it was criticized because, yeah, the female characters are basically nothing. They don't really have any agency. I don't know if they particularly complained about the language, but that would be something that you would have looked up that I didn't.
Well, there's some language that I can forgive in terms of it being of the time, like referring to Jamie Lee Curtis as a hooker. Like that's not the language we would necessarily use now. Things like that kind of stuff I can overlook. I was just having a rough time with it. Maybe I'm just being well, I don't think I'm being overly sensitive. Was I think it was an issue for me. But
Okay. I don't really have much to say to that. You definitely are looking at it through a different lens than I am, obviously.
yeah,
And
and I recognize that, and I know that this is
when
well,
I
that's what I
know
was
it's a
saying.
comedy movie, I'll usually excuse a lot of things in the name of it's them trying to be funny, even though it's not my taste. Not straight up misogyny is not funny. I'm not saying that, but having a misogynist character can be funny because he's funny because he's terrible. Like, you hate him, and the things he says are so outrageous that they make you chuckle.
I think what happened for me was that I was so turned off already by Tom Arnold's character and then Bill Paxton's character. But I probably could have overlooked that stuff and then it just got worse. Do you know what I mean? So it was like on top of it was stuff that irritated me, but I could probably have overlooked or forgiven for being of the time. And then it just kept getting worse. So then I had a hard time looking past it, if that makes sense.
Okay. Dead
Jen, anything
silence.
to add?
Okay, so speaking of this movie being gross in some ways, did you guys read about Eliza Dushku's assault story from working on this?
Yes.
No.
I was contemplating whether I should bring this up or not. So I'm glad that you did.
Yeah, that's something where I had read about it when she first spoke about it a few years ago during the kind of Me Too movement. And I forgot about it until I saw her name pop up in the opening credits of this movie. And I was like, oh no, is this the one that she talked about? And it was. So basically, for anyone who doesn't know, Jackie, it sounds like you didn't read about
I
this.
do not know what this is about, and I'm dreading it.
Yeah, so Eliza Deshku was 12 years old while filming this, and the stunt coordinator sexually assaulted her. She told someone about it on set, told an adult basically. The adult confronted the stunt coordinator, who was in charge of the end stunt when they're on the crane. And then the next day, after the confrontation, she was injured during the stunt that the man who assaulted her was overseeing and broke ribs.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
So it's
whoa.
pretty dark.
I have her
That's
quote,
super dark.
which really hit me hard, and I feel like I'm gonna share it. She said, "With broke." So yeah, it was after the on the crane there at the end that scene. With broken ribs, I spent the evening in the hospital. To be clear, over the course of those months rehearsing and filming True Lies, it was Joel Kramer who was responsible for my safety on a film that at the time broke new ground for action films. On a daily basis, he rigged wires and harnesses on my 12-year-old body. My life was literally in his hands. He hung me in the open air from a tower crane atop an office tower 25 plus stories high, whereas he was supposed to be my protector, he was my abuser. So just the concept of he literally had her safety in his hands is just, and I know that that's not this movie, that doesn't represent this movie as a whole, but yeah, that was a rough blow.
That's really awful. Yeah, that's awful. There's no excusing that. Terrible. I wish you guys didn't know that, because I think it's impacting the movie for you, which is fine. You can't help it. It impacts it. But I didn't know that, and I've always seen this movie without knowing that. You know what I mean?
To be fair, I learned that after I watched the movie, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's really awful.
Like Austin said too, I don't blame this movie for that incident. Like, this was one man, this was his responsibility, and he's the one that both assaulted her sexually and then physically by allowing her to get injured, kind of as repercussion for not being silent about his assault. So fuck that guy. But
fuck him
I'm not blaming the other people on the film.
No, and in their defense, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Arnold, and Arnold Schwarzenegger have both spoken up in support of Eliza Deshku and kind of condemned his Joel Kramer's behavior. So, I mean, at least, like, the blame's not on anyone else involved in this movie, but yeah, toxic.
Yeah. Just while we were talking about feeling parts of the movie were misogynistic, I think maybe it was important to mention that there is this unfortunate overtone.
I guess, but now I don't know how we can talk about the rest of the movie and how I can act like it was funny.
I'm sorry. We can...
No, I just don't know what else to say. Like, that's kind of it. Now it's awful.
So, yeah, so now...
The end. Podcast over.
But now maybe now that we have that kind of harder conversation out of the way, we can talk about some more lighthearted aspects of the film.
Yes. Okay.
This is what we're going to do now. We're just going to talk about one of the fun and lighthearted scenes that I particularly enjoyed, which is the motorcycle versus horse chase. Anyone?
Yeah.
It's classic. It's fantastic. It's perfect in every single way.
It's so bananas. When they're going through that hotel, I was like, how many rooms in this hotel are they going through where no one is intervening? No one's like throwing something to knock the guy off their motorcycle. They're all just diving out of the way. They like pass through the band that's playing. It was pure comedy.
Yeah, I really like how easy it was for both of them to obtain their modes of transportation. He just literally picks a guy off a motorcycle and he's like, this is mine now. And then Arnold pushes the policeman off a horse and doesn't get shot 10 times. Although he does say, agent in pursuit of a suspect, so maybe that's all you need to do.
He didn't show a badge or anything, though. I did make a note of that. I'm like, that was awful easy to just hijack that horse.
Holding a gun in his hand and wearing a trench coat. Like, he could be any psycho businessman on Earth.
And
but
also,
he's Arnold, so... You do it.
He's got a thick Austrian accent. If you're a DC cop, would you automatically assume that this guy's like an FBI agent or something? You'd be like, okay, this is a crazy man.
I think it's more that this is like a park police officer who maybe is not at the top of his game and just falls off his horse at very little provocation. But I think it's hilarious. I'm sorry, I just really like that he's giving the plan to them over the radio and he's like, but hurry because my horse is getting tired. And Tom Hardy's like, you're what?
I love towards the end where the guy's on the motorcycle and he goes into the elevator on the motorcycle. So then Arnold's like, well, I have to bring the horse into the other elevator and then we'll just slowly ride up together.
Like, and stare at each other intensely. Maybe sexually? I know. He could have gotten off his horse and gotten in the elevator, but I'm assuming the decision was made to take the horse in the elevator. P.S. Chillest horse ever. I think a horse would have a freak out if it was in a glass enclosed elevator. But also, still, because maybe they're going to have a further chase on the roof, so he still needs a mode of transport.
But like pure luck that this elevator was large enough for a horse.
Right? For a horse to turn around in.
Yeah, horses are big, guys. I don't know if you know, but like they're relatively large.
Horses are what now? They're big?
Big. I know. It's shocking.
Very chill horse. Very, very cool horse. Honestly, the horse might be my favorite character in the movie. He makes it. He is very smart. And especially when probably my favorite moment in the movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger prepares to jump his horse over 6 lanes of traffic into another hotel
Yeah.
because they totally set it up. I mean, action movies have inherently impossible, unbelievable stunts happen, and you know going into a movie like this that you're buying into that premise. So the way they set it up with the stirring music and the slow-mo, you think he's actually going to jump this horse and succeed and not kill them both. So he goes and he gallops, and then the horse, can see that there's empty space and just puts the brakes on. Arnold goes flying over the edge of the building and is kept up by the reins attached to the horse.
Yeah, I was very proud of that horse. I was like, that's right, horse,
right.
don't take his
Isn't he
shit.
such a good horse? And then somehow he even understands to move backwards and pull Arnie's dumbass back up onto the roof. So that's a good horse. This horse is he's a pro. He deserves an Academy Award.
I mean, the horse was the best character in the movie for me, so
I love immediately after that, Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, what are you doing? You're a terrible cop. We're supposed to help him jump. And I'm like dying. I'm like, this horse is amazing, and you're just yelling at it.
I did laugh at that part. There was my one, like, there's the comedy of this movie.
The horse is like got good comedic timing. It like whinnies in indignation when he's calling him a bad horse cop. He's like, what? I'm great. I just saved your life, you idiot. My question about that scene is, okay, the guy, sure, we agree that the terrorist can jump a motorcycle over legitimately 6 lanes of traffic into another hotel pool. That's fine. But then he just lets him go. He has like 12 agents down in the lobby.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he be like, hey guys, he's going to be coming out of that other hotel next door. Go there. But instead he just stares at him like, well, I guess you've won this round, terrorist.
Yeah, and as we see later, like, he has the resources to pull in helicopters, so, like, why not be like, hey, we need air support, someone track this guy.
Yeah, or anything.
For an actual terrorist.
Yeah.
Yeah, who, like, walked up to him with a semi-automatic gun and just started shooting. Like, this is obviously a bad dude. He's not like maybe he's a terrorist. He's, like, the straight-up worst. Maybe catch him.
What did you guys think of the villains of this movie? The terrorists?
So the terrorist man, I don't know if I necessarily understand his motive at any point. The woman, Tia Carrera, I used to watch the show she was on, Relic Hunter, where she was kind of like a Lara Croft Tomb Raider type. So in this, where she's still doing the same thing, but she's a bad guy, I was just like, oh, this is fun. So I like her, basically, because of my memories of her from the 90s.
Yeah, I like her because she's despicable. There's nothing good about her. And I also really like that she almost shoots Helen in the face. It comes within like an inch. Like, she's cold-blooded, which I appreciate. But the generic Arabic nation terrorist with a nuclear weapon wasn't such a trope, I guess, when this movie was made. It was still kind of accepted, but it's just kind of boring now. It's definitely feels lazy, even though at the time I'm sure you wouldn't have the same opinion, but I'm just like, yeah, okay, great. All right.
I think generic is the best way of describing them. Well, and maybe a little racist, if not just very insensitive. But just generic. Like, I didn't. They weren't an engaging group of villains, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And there's nothing about them that was different or outstanding. In fact, the one thing I really noticed during watching it this time when I was trying to be a little bit more critical, which is hard for me, but was that the portrayal of the terrorists are all these like dirty, unshaven, kind of like overweight, kind of like I feel like they're trying to make them look bad. They weren't just people, they were this caricature of a terrorist, which is a stereotype of an Arab man, it's bad. Yeah. They tried specifically to make them look gross, which was
they actually ended up having to put like a message in the credits. I didn't see it. I don't know if it's still there, but they had to put like a message in the credits being like, this group of villains does not represent any religious group or group of people as a whole. Like, they got a lot of shit for that.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
that's encouraging for the 90s. At least there's that. They were starting to move towards something.
Pushback. For this terrorist group, did they ever even say like what country they were supposed to be from? I just took them as the most generic Arabic terrorist cell ever. But was there any details?
I don't
They
think
did
so.
say in the beginning, when they first identified him as the terrorist leader, they did say where he was from, although I can't remember it. And then they said he was an offshoot of a terrorist group, and his is called Crimson Jihad.
Yeah, I
That's
do
it.
remember like he had his own terrorist cell that he was running, but I just couldn't remember if they had said like specifically what region in the Middle East he was
Yeah, I don't think
upset
so. I think
about.
it just, yeah, it goes back to how generic it is, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of is using that brush like, oh, everyone in that region is a terrorist, right? So yeah, it's bad. It's not good. I didn't really like the bad guys, but it's almost like I wasn't left with any impression with them. They were just, yeah, we've said it 75 times, but generic. There wasn't anything about them that was really that threatening or interesting. It was just like, oh, okay, so you're going with option 2B on the movie terrorist playlist.
Exactly.
But
And I
sorry, this is going to be a gross moment, everybody. Brace yourselves.
oh no.
When I was a child, I had a crush on the terrorist leader. I thought he had
Oh,
really pretty eyes, and I liked his curly
okay.
hair. Yeah, I know. I'm a freak. I am a bad person, but I was like, I thought, like, before I understood anything going on in the movie, I was just like, he has really nice eyes.
Do you know what I'm going to say to that?
Yeah,
It
yeah, tell
makes
me.
sense based on your love of Jason Mantzoukas that you're into
That is
kind of like a
true.
disheveled, crazy kind of man.
Yeah, it's true. I like the crazy
Shout out
eyes.
to Jason Mantzoukas.
Yeah, Jason Mantzoukas, if you're out there, we're getting married. I don't know why you're resisting, but we're getting married. Great. Now that that's out there, and I feel weird.
If it makes you feel any better, I can say that I was not attracted to anyone in this movie.
I
You know?
honestly, I found Arnold Schwarzenegger slightly attractive in this movie.
Yeah, like he wasn't ugly.
Yeah, and this is the movie where he had his most comedic chops, even though that was like 0.1% of a comedic chop. It was
What
still
about
the funniest
Jingle
he's
All the
ever been.
Way?
Never seen it, never will
About
Wow.
see it.
what?
Jingle All the Way. That's his like comedy
Oh,
Christmas masterpiece.
You know what's terrible is I think the only Arnold Schwarzenegger movies I've seen are the like really shitty comedies. Like I'm pretty sure I've seen Jingle All the
Mm.
Way. I've definitely seen Kindergarten Cop, and I've definitely seen Twins,
But not
Yeah.
Terminator.
but not
What is
Terminator.
what is life, Austin? I still can't believe that. But yeah, I only like comedy action Arnold, and not like Kindergarten Cop Arnold. That's more comedy. It has to be the
Yeah.
right mix, and this is to me the right mix. And they play to his kind of stoicness and inability to act, and give him the best that he can do. So yeah, when he's mildly funny, I really dig it. And I also really love that every time he's doing anything as a spy, he's always apologizing.
Yes,
He's
I
like,
did
sorry,
appreciate that.
excuse me, pardon me.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. And like he's like racing a horse through a hotel, and you can just hear the really quiet, like, sorry, as he like zooms past.
Yeah, I
Great.
did like that.
I love a polite man and also a spy.
I think the one thing, I guess, other than the horse, that I did enjoy about the movie is like right at the beginning. But I did like that they introduced him as being a very like knowledgeable, like international man, right? He's like speaking all the languages. You just hear a bunch of languages throughout the house. I thought that was cool. That was a good way to kind of set a character without just telling us.
Yeah, I love the opening scene. He's very slick. He can
Yeah,
do
and I love
anything.
that it's such like a spy movie cliche. So like they are kind of having fun with it. So there's still kind of those comedy elements coming in, but it's also just yeah, really well done that he's like, "Oh, I'm breaking into the party and now I'm in the suit. Now I'm small talking people and now I'm doing a tango to try to escape." Like it's a really good intro.
Yeah, and then another thing that I like is how every time, even though they're in this life and death situation, he's being chased by assassins, they're still like bantering and being kind of casual about it. Like it's not that big a deal. Making jokes, him and the band guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I
I
love
like
that
how you
vibe.
call them van guys because I also made a note. I just referred to them as the van guys.
Yeah, it's Gib and Faisal, but I wasn't sure you guys wanted to call them by their names.
I don't think I know like a single character name. I'm just calling them all by their actor names. So the Van guys would be Tom Arnold and Friend because I do not know that actor's name.
Yeah.
I honestly think that
I'd pick
Friend,
number 2.
yeah, Friend, aka Faisal, was criminally underused in this movie. I thought everything he did was really funny. I know he didn't like the
He
going
had
up the skirt line. That's fine. He also tangos with Tom Arnold in a really funny way. And he has a really good line that I'll quote later, but he was obviously you didn't really see him there. He had a couple like 4 or 5 good moments, and I was like, he could have been a really better part of this movie.
Well, he had a
But
really
he
good
was
kill at the
underused.
end, right? That was
Yeah, he killed
him
like 4
trying-
terrorists. Pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretending to be the cameraman. That was cool. I appreciated that.
Yeah, and that's not his regular role either, right? So it's even more noteworthy that he was able to do it. Congratulations, Faisal. I bet he got promoted from that. Well done.
In the fictional world of the movie.
Yeah, actually, he was still in the van at the end of the movie, so never mind. He's just a van guy for life. Van guy for life.
Maybe that's all he wants. Maybe he's like, I just want the simple life of being in the van.
Right? Maybe he got a taste of what it's like to kill someone and was like, you know what? I'm good with the computer in the van.
Oh, I was going to say something totally random. I was just going to ask what your guys' favorite spy movie was.
Interesting. Of all the spy movies in the world, I'm not sure I've seen many. Like, I've seen a couple James Bonds.
Yeah.
I've seen Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I've seen this. I've never seen any of the Spy Kids movies, and I will never, because that sounds like absolute torture. Can you name any
What
other
about
spy
Agent
movies?
Cody
Is anyone else
Banks?
thinking of any? Because I'm drawing a blank.
So for me, I love the Mission Impossible movies. So that's where I'm going.
Hmm.
Agent Cody Banks, Austin. Why are you invited to this podcast?
I've never seen
I don't
that,
even
but
think I've
wasn't
seen
that
Agent Cody Banks.
Malcolm in the Middle?
It was. And Hilary Duff.
Austin, did you see it 12 times?
I just
in
said
theaters?
I haven't seen it. I just said I haven't seen it.
I think you said I haven't seen it once. That means you could have seen it 12 times.
Yeah. Every bad movie now, I'm like, Austin, did you see it 12 times?
I was riffing off a Jackie's Spy Kids reference. I'm sorry.
It's
I will
fine.
say the Mission Impossibles are great. I do love them too.
Yes.
I mean, I would have said True
Yeah,
Lies is my favorite, but now I feel really like I can't. Knowing about some of the background of the movie, I think it might be spoiled.
It could still be your favorite. What about like Charlie's Angels, like the 90s ones? They're
Ooh.
spies, right?
I guess. I was
Yeah.
always really iffy on those. I felt like they could have taken it to a really empowering place, and instead they took it to a really dumb place. I never really liked those movies. They're like appealing in the way that they're fluffy, silly, stupid.
Yeah, I
It's
know
that
they
kind of a
did
movie.
a remake of Charlie's Angels in like 2019, which I never saw, but I kind of felt the same way about that, where I was like, oh, they're making it more modern. It's going to be really cool and empowering. And then the trailer was like, we're still just wearing like fun outfits because being a spy is all about getting dressed up and looking good. And I was like, oh, wait, you didn't do anything different with this.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that either, and I think it flopped pretty hard,
Yeah, I think it did too.
as it probably should have.
Anyway,
I'm trying to think.
I love a good spy movie, so that's why I was just curious where you guys are.
I
Yeah,
love a
that's
good
why
spy
I've
movie
seen
too.
a lot of them. I haven't seen very many.
There's nothing better than like a spy getting ready montage, or the spy equipment and all the tools and the watching them go undercover, and like you said, like the opening scene where he's displaying all these
Yes.
skills he has, and so slick and smooth. Very appealing. I could watch that for an entire movie for sure.
Mhm.
Just
I
people
always
being
love-
good at things.
Yes. I always love the moment where they're about to get caught and then they don't, like right at the last second, where it's like so tense and you're like, oh, someone's coming down the hall and they're not out of the room yet. They're about to be caught. But then
Yeah.
they make it out of the room because they're amazing, or they like hide in the ceiling somehow.
Yeah, or it was all part of the plan where they were supposed
Yes.
to catch them. That's a good moment too. That's a very Mission Impossible thing where you think it's going wrong, but they already anticipated all of this going wrong, and they planned for it to happen and made it work.
I love the Mission Impossible movie, guys.
I do too, and a lot of people have a problem with Tom Cruise, and obviously there are problems, but I think he does a really good job. He very much disappears in those movies, and I just buy that he's Ethan Hunt.
I'm a total Tom Cruise apologist. Like, I know he's a gross Scientologist and it's creepy, but I love his movies. They're all so good.
There's so many Scientologists that are great actors. It's very sad.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, we should probably get back to True Lies for another hot
Yeah.
second, though.
Sorry for that tangent, guys. I just wanted to talk about spies for a minute.
No, it was great. I loved it because now I'm thinking about spy movies, and it's putting me in a great mood. I don't think we really have to talk about Bill Paxton. kind of rather not. He's despicable. I hate him. Nothing about him is good, and I agree. There's no way we can argue about that. He's everything wrong with masculinity and men. But that's what he is supposed to present. That's the intention. He's the bad dude in that plot of the home problems. He's the enemy. He gets his comeuppance. He serves the narrative arc. But he's genuinely a horrible person. And yeah, it's underlined in all the ways that he's sexist, misogynistic, abusive, weak, pees himself. Like, he's just the worst. So unnecessary character, yes. Goodbye, Bill Paxton. And it's sad too because I like Bill Paxton in a lot of
things. Waste of Bill Paxton.
Same.
But he's so good at being despicable. Like, you can still see that he's a good actor because you like respond so much to how much you hate him. That's talent.
I did appreciate too how many actors in this movie that like James Cameron's worked with multiple times. So like Schwarzenegger from Terminator, obviously, Bill Paxton in Aliens. I was like, you can tell when he likes people and just keeps them around.
Yeah, and he does a good job. Like, that character has to be so kind of over the top to Arnie's straight, unable to act personage that you think that if you just watch Bill Paxton in isolation, you think it's way too much, but confronted with the straightest of straight men, it's good. He does a good job anyway. He does a good job of being the worst person alive, if you can phrase it that way. But yeah, we can just skip talking about him because I think we all agree he sucks, right?
Yeah,
Boo.
he sucks.
Definitely a liar and a manipulator. We don't like him. Goodbye. Sorry, Bill Paxton. Or Simon, I guess. Bill Paxton himself, I'm sure, is a lovely man.
He's dead, isn't he?
Yes, I do believe he died.
No! Bill Paxton's dead?
Yeah, sorry, Jackie.
No! You guys! Is this how I'm going to remember Bill Paxton? This is terrible. No.
I just quickly looked it up. He died in 2017.
How did he die?
Let's find out by clicking on his Wikipedia page.
Oh, that's real sad. I'm super bummed out.
Damaged heart valve, and then he had open heart surgery, and then a stroke a few days later.
Oh, jeez.
That's a bad one.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Bill Paxton. You were a gentleman and a scholar. That's depressing. Oh boy, downer again. You guys, this is a roller coaster. I'm up and down, up and down.
I know, every time we try to bring it back up, we just shoot right down, so,
I guess True Lies is just supposed to be a real depressing movie and podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. He's motorcycle horse chased. He's abused his wife through spying on her and manipulating her. Glossing over it.
Yeah, we're moving right past that.
We're blowing past it, otherwise we'll never stop talking. And now, I guess we do have to talk about, do we have to talk about the dancing scene? The Jamie Lee Curtis stripping scene?
Here's what I'm going to say. I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she's a fucking icon. I think that in this movie, she has a lot of great comedy moments. I think she does a lot of good, like, character work, like the growth from being that kind of dowdy housewife at the beginning to one who can, like, punch Tia Carrere in the face and be like, fuck you. She's really cool. And I get that scene is kind of like the transformation scene where she's getting in character and being all sexy. I think she did a good job. I don't know if I needed it to go on that long.
Yeah, I think that she considered it, and I think a lot of people would consider it to be like the infamous striptease, to be supposed to be empowering to the character and liberating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how Jamie Lee Curtis interprets it. So I mean, more power to her. But yeah, it's long, it's gross, it's manipulative again. I don't get it. I think what frustrates me is that I think that the movie, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I interpreted it that the movie was kind of like, oh, Arnold's cooked up this kooky scheme and we're gonna liven things up, spice things up in their sex life and all this. But it's, it doesn't come off that way to me at all. And so it was hard for me to look past that. And I mean, we can, there's also the plot hole of how could she not tell that was
I did think that, like, she's kind of just in a shadow 6 feet away, and she's like, who is this strange man?
Yeah.
Like, I can tell it's your husband.
Yeah, it's the exact shape of your husband, who is a behemoth.
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking? Sure, yeah. But, I mean, you're right. I think that's exactly how they presented it. It's a kooky scheme, and he's going to give his wife what he thinks she wants, which is intrigue and drama and adventure. And I take it too that she's approaching it with excitement. Like, she wants to be doing this. I know that they said, oh, we give you the option or else your family will be, your life will be ruined and your family will be poor and imprisoned and you're sad. So do this mission. But I still think that when she goes to do it, she wants to do it. Like, she's excited. I think this is,
I guess, yeah.
she wants to. She's not, doesn't feel like she's a victim who's being forced. She's into it. She's giving herself sexy looks in the mirror, you know, she's thinking about it. And then I do think that Arnold was planning on revealing himself to her, obviously, when he goes to kiss her. Mm-hmm. Like, I think he was going to say, like, before anything too sexual happened, he was going to be like, it's me, your husband, just FYI. But I don't know. I took it to be more harmless because I was watching it from a child's perspective.
Yeah, I think you're right that she wanted to be there. Like, she wanted to be involved in this, you know, she's a secret agent. She's, you know, a badass, and she is a badass. But like, knowing that that's not actually what was happening, that it was just her husband tricking her was...
Would it be better if it was a stranger and she was strip dancing for them?
I mean, it would be better plot-wise. It wouldn't be great, but it wouldn't be humiliation in the same way, because even if she doesn't realize it is, I just found it very degrading. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm a bummer on this one.
No, I get
No,
what
you're allowed
saying.
to have an opinion, dude. You're totally allowed. It's just hard for me because I'm defensive, because I just am seeing it from a very different lens.
Yeah. No, I know. I was worried about talking about this one with you, because I was like, I feel like Jack and I are going to go head to head on this one a little bit.
Yeah, I have had to hold back saying a lot of stuff.
Let me be the calming presence here. Like, I don't think we need to get defensive, because even if we're having an issue with a movie, that's not an issue with you, and you're not wrong for looking at it in a different way. Like, you know, Austin's not wrong, Jackie's not wrong, you're just approaching it differently, and that's okay.
Thank you, calming Jen.
You are welcome.
Can you speak like this?
Low,
I agree, totally.
Tones.
But it's hard not to feel defensive when you love a movie, right? Like, we can acknowledge that.
It's like, okay. I mean, I've been lucky in this podcast so far because I have amazing taste, and you guys have both liked the movies I've suggested.
That seems a little excessive.
When that very quickly goes to shit, and I make you guys watch things that I love dearly that you can't stomach, then I'm gonna feel a little defensive. Like, I understand where you're coming from.
No, me too. Obviously, you guys haven't liked my movies either. Like, I totally get it. I think I went into this movie with an open mind, because I was like, well, I liked The Rock, you know, action comedy. I can maybe get on board with this. And,
right.
You know, for the first like 45 minutes, I was like, okay, it's not my favorite, but it's got, you know, I can see the appeal a little bit. The language kind of turned me off, but whatever, fine. And then like the last hour or last 45 minutes was fine. I had no issues with the tail end of this movie. It's just that middle section was so rough for me that it was really hard to separate it. And I just don't see why it was even needed narratively.
I think it was put in there because purely for the sex appeal, I guess. Like, we need to throw a bone to the horn dogs in the audience.
I did say this awakened so many things in teenage boys, didn't it?
Totally. And like, Jamie Lee Curtis is hot as hell. My God.
Oh, she looks fine. She looks
It's awful. Insane how dowdy they make her look in the beginning. How is that even possible?
And like, in that striptease, she's wearing the smallest underwear.
Yeah.
Like,
and the highest underwear. It goes like almost connects to her bra.
Where it's like, you can't really, I was like, this was maybe very sexy in the 90s, but I'm like, it's such a weird, like, small, high shape, just covering the most important bits, and that's it. But like, like, she looked great. And like Austin said, she took it as a very empowering thing. She really gave it her all in this role, I think. I think she did an amazing job as an actress. I have no complaints about Jamie Lee Curtis ever.
Correct. We're all on the same page. She is a goddess and can do no wrong. And she is great at the comedy in this. Again, she's playing against a cardboard box, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So she does fantastic to make him appear almost like a romantic, desirable man. Almost. That's all Jamie Lee Curtis, I swear. And she has to kiss him, and it looks like the worst kisser, but she sells it. She makes you think that maybe it's okay. It's not okay.
One of the little pieces of trivia, so while we're on the topic of the striptease, and so that we don't have to come back to it later, the moment where she falls There's like rumors that it was an accident. It sounds like it wasn't really an accident. Like she had planned it through with James Cameron that that she was gonna fall and then just get back up. And like I'll admit, like I kind of chuckled at that point, or maybe not so much chuckled, but acknowledged that the humor in it there. And but they didn't tell Arnold Schwarzenegger, so you can see him kind of like jerk up and then like realize that like and then she kind of like relaxes. So that was like an authentic reaction from him, and I liked that little tiny moment, that little microscopic moment. I was like, that was a charming little bit.
Yeah, he's gonna get up and help her. Totally charming. But then he's like, "Oh, she's fine. Sit back down."
Yeah.
I when she was filming that, I was like, "Can you imagine how horrible it would be to film this like in front of 40 guys?" He's like, here we go. Day 6 of dancing in my underwear for the entire crew. Great. But Jamie Lee Curtis, man, she sells it. She makes it work. She's
a pro.
Great at stripping, man. Like, she's skillful. But yeah, I do just want to say that's a great moment. She's so funny. I love her. She falls over and she gets right back up there and starts headbanging against the bed. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just now forget the first movie we talked about, True Lies Part 1.
Yeah, we're out of the super problematic stuff.
Yeah,
and they
now
get kidnapped.
The good stuff.
Yeah, True Lies Part 2. Truer Lies. Again, second part of the movie, I find Jamie Lee Curtis just shines like a star. She's so funny. She's so involved. She's such a badass for sure. But like, just so that we're all caught up, they're kidnapped. They're taken to an island in the Florida Keys where they want Arnold to verify that they have all the arming components of a nuclear weapon, and so they can send this video to the news. And they're going to torture them to death and kill them. So another iconic part of it is the truth serum scene. Did you guys enjoy that?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I love high Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's very appealing.
I will admit at this point, I did stop taking notes at a certain point. A part of me just kind of checked out. I was still watching it, but maybe not as intently as I had been up until that point. I don't actually remember the truth serum.
What happens is they're tied up. They administer sodium pentothal or whatever to Arnold Schwarzenegger so that he will tell the truth, and they plan on torturing information out of him about, the spy sector he's a part of and all the information they have about the terrorists. But they leave them for a second while it takes effect, so Harry and Helen have an honest conversation for maybe the first time.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, okay. I think I just missed that there was truth serum involved. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he was kind of like woozy. But I did actually really like some of the comedy in that scene at first where Jamie Lee Curtis is like, is it working? Is the truth serum working? And he's like, well, ask me something I'd normally lie about. And she's like, are we going to die? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. We are 100% about to die.
He's like, yep. And then he's like, they're going to shoot us in the head, or they're going to torture us to death, or they're going to leave us here when the bomb goes off. And she's like, shut up! That's one of his best lines, which is not saying much. But it's great. I love him on True Serum. And then he busts out his handcuffs and kills a bunch of guys. And then the body count starts for real.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Would you like to take a guess at the body count? This is my guess the number of the week.
In the entire movie.
I feel like we need like a little segment, like a little like pew, 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 pew.
Body count.
Austin makes you guess a number.
Nice. I'm going to say 96 for the whole movie.
Okay. Yeah, the whole movie.
131.
Ooh, you both went over. Not by much. 80. 80. Okay. A respectable body count.
Sure. Is that including the carnage from them shooting at random buildings in like downtown Miami and the people below getting shards of glass in the face?
I was so going to mention that. There's one scene where Tom Arnold is like, stop, terrorist! And he just starts spraying the whole area with automatic weapon fire, and Tom Arnold hides behind a lamppost so he doesn't get hit. But I'm like, all those bullets went somewhere. There are people walking down the crowded street. So I think at least like 14 people died from that one section of the scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably more. I think our count is probably more accurate if you consider collateral damage.
There's definitely
because I mean, if we're being honest, I don't verify these claims. I just, write
Google.
Down what the internet tells me, and internet's always right? If you read it on the internet, it's true. So
yeah, about everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, the Earth is flat, right?
I heard that somewhere on the internet, so it must be.
Yeah, it's true.
I do want to talk about when Jamie Lee Curtis drops the gun down the stairs and it
Yeah.
just like
And it shoots
everyone
everybody.
rolling down the stairs in the
Yeah,
slowest of motion.
I'm not 100% sure how guns work, but that seems unlikely that that's how it works. You need to pull a trigger, right? Am I wrong?
No, I
I
think
don't
you
know
just
how.
drop it. You just
Okay,
drop
great.
a gun and it'll automatically shoot all the bad guys for you, but not yourself.
God,
Right.
that's great. Okay, I'll note that for the next time I'm in a movie. But you're right. Like this movie, like right at this point is when it amps up the movie into crazy territory, for sure. A lot of it before was crazy, but this is crazy after crazy, building on crazy to the nth degree. There's such a big shootout. There's hundreds of bad guys running around. There's a gasoline gun, which I still don't understand. If you shoot gasoline, is it going to light on fire? I thought it needed like the spark of a firing pin. Anybody?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on how that works. I think it might be magic.
Okay, I'm into that. And Arnold's shirt is getting like burnt off, which is so weird. He is wearing like the weirdest remnants of a shirt. But it just spirals out into crazy town. The whole compound is exploding for reasons I don't understand, because it's just like houses and cardboard boxes and pallets, but they're all blowing up all the time, which is fantastic. I will say this movie does that a lot. Things blow up that have no reason to blow up, which I just love.
Who needs a reason?
Yeah, there was like a snowmobile in the beginning,
Yeah.
but he shoots a guy on skis and then something explodes. I was like,
Oh,
what?
yeah.
I think it was like a continuity error where it was supposed to be that he was shooting a snowmobile guy, but he was actually shooting a guy on skis. So it makes me really happy. I'm like, look at that guy blow up. He must have been carrying a gas tank on his back. Anyway, yeah, so Arnold one hand destroys the compound, but it's too late to stop the nuclear weapon from going off, so they all have to evacuate from the island, and Jamie Lee Curtis ends up in terrorist hands.
Yeah, she ends up
Arnold.
in a limo with, what's her name? Tia Carrera?
Juno Skinner.
Yeah,
And,
sorry, I only know actor names. Her character is
I only know
apparently named
character names.
Juno Skinner.
I only know character names, so this is a good match.
And they have a fight in the back of the limo, and their driver gets shot dead, right? So the limo's kind of careening.
Yeah, their driver
over the
gets
place.
shot and killed in a way that makes him accelerate and not stop.
I totally was thinking the same thing, because I'm like, obviously his foot would fall off the gas pedal, but they do frame it in such a way that he's quite a large, heavy guy, and he's in the seat by a seatbelt, and he just kind of like slumps, and that's pushing down on the gas pedal.
I don't know how I was so out of it, but that didn't even click with me. I was like, yeah, the car keeps going. That makes sense.
And it's like
Like, if it was-
careening, like you're saying, it's like smashing off the side. They're getting tossed around in the back, and the corpse up front is like, nope, not budging. This foot is on the gas, folks.
That's a good point. Yeah, one of the times it hit the guardrail, you'd think he would have slipped sideways or something. But it sets it up for the best thing ever, so we have to allow it.
Yeah, of course. It's just, it has to happen this way so that they could be fighting in the limo, and then the bridge is out, and then Jamie Lee Curtis needs to jump into Arnold's hands in the helicopter.
In such a cinematic way. It's fantastic.
Could she not have just waited? Like, would it not have been safer for her to, like, wait until the car was almost in the water and then jump?
The car's going like 90 miles an hour. You mean like jump into the water?
Yes. Like, as it was...
she would have died.
Like, I mean, she would have died trying to hang on to someone hanging from a helicopter.
Not Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I don't know.
He's super strong.
I would have.
Obviously, it wouldn't work in real life, but I also think that jumping out of a moving car into the water, which has a surface tension equivalent to cement.
I'm saying as it's going over, because it slowed down. It like careened. It dove into the water. Just kind of like when if you were ever to go off a bridge in your car, wait until like the window starts filling up before you. Or never mind.
Oh, so you think she should have like gone into the water?
Yeah.
In a crash and then swum out.
Yes.
See, what I thought she should have done.
There's no seatbelts. Sorry. There's no seatbelts, so she would have died still.
Okay, I just think she should have maybe crawled to the front and took control of the car.
I think so too, but how would she move that giant man out of the driver's seat?
I don't know.
What about the emergency brake?
Yeah, I live in the world where she could have maybe removed his foot from the gas, but the movie has set up that his foot is a lead brick and it cannot be moved from the gas.
Yeah, correct. And also they're going so fast that she doesn't notice that the bridge is out for a really long time. So I don't
Yes.
think they would have had time to stop by the time she figured it out. But still, yeah, she could have handled it in a lot of different ways. This one was the best because it succeeded. And it was awesome. It's one of the best when the car falls from under her. Like, I love that. They didn't take her out of the car. The car drops from under her body, which is just fantastic. And I also love, again, let's repeat it. This is the Jamie Lee Curtis show. But she never stops screaming in this crazy high-pitched voice. And it's just like, yeah, that's how you would be if this is happening. You'd be freaking out. It's fantastic. I love it.
And then there's another 40 minutes left.
Totally. That I cannot fault you for because I was like, oh, I knew how much more was coming. I'm like, there's so much more that has to happen.
Like the
It's
movie
work night.
wraps up. It wraps up. And then it's like, no, there's still.
Yeah, because it wraps up his marital problems, but now he's got to wrap up his fathering problems.
Yes. So they find out that their daughter has been taken hostage.
Dana
has been taken hostage.
One of my first notes, Austin, is it says Eliza Deshku. It's Austin's Buffy connection. She's going to be so stoked.
I was very happy to see that. I mean, she's great. She's always great.
So, do we know why the terrorist decided to kidnap her? Was he just like, I need an extra hostage for leverage just in case?
I'm not sure.
When did they kidnap her?
They clearly find the picture in his wallet of his family. We saw that, right? So he knows that Arnold has a daughter. So I think it became like, this guy is fucking everything up for me continuously and always. And even though I think I may have killed him, I'm going to destroy him even further by messing with his daughter. But I don't think it's very clear about whether he was going to the city that Dana lives in coincidentally and decided to pick her up on the way, or if he changed his whole plan in order to be on the rooftop near Dana's house. It's not very clear exactly how the logistics played out, but he's a bad dude, so we're just going to accept that he did it, and that's it.
But Dana takes after her mother. She's a badass.
Totally.
And steals the key that will, they have to turn a little key and then everything's going to explode. She steals the key and then runs upstairs onto the roof. And then there's Meanwhile, Arnold Schwarzenegger's decided to go Top Gun on us.
Yes!
And then I was like, oh, this is why Jackie likes this movie.
Right? I actually love that scene. No, I'm sorry, it is. I love it. I love that he's flying a Harrier jet. It's fantastic.
I made a note because around one of those scenes, I think Tom Arnold is the one shouting instructions, and he's like, Marines, do this. You got this, Marines? Yes. And I was like, does every movie Jackie likes have Marines? Does she just love the Marines?
Maybe I do, okay? Maybe. American propaganda is so deep in my heart from these movies that I can't have you badmouth the Marines.
And this definitely is propaganda. They provided a shit ton of equipment for this movie, the U.S. Army, or the U.S. military.
I loved when the Harrier jets come to blow up the bridge. The whole scene of them flying around, coming in, peeling off sideways. Amazing. I could watch footage like that forever. It's so thrilling when jets fly around. I know, it's like I'm a 10-year-old boy, but I love it. I would watch, especially fast jets. Like, you can tell at some points the way they get that cloud around that they're approaching the sound barrier. Awesome. So cool. And then you have Arnold, the super spy, who can barely fly it. He's so shitty at takeoff. I thought that was another really funny moment because he's not just spy man, takes a plane and goes. He crashes a couple cars and looks like a tool.
Yeah, so he takes the plane, brings it up to where Dana is dangling off of a crane, and she jumps on it. There's a bit more of a fight with the terrorist, and then we get a second Rocket Man.
Yes, he says, "You're fired," and shoots the missile.
Yes, of course. And also, you forgot before that, there's some man getting hit in the testicles humor.
Oh, yes.
When he hits the tail of the plane with his crotch and makes a very exaggerated "whoa" face. Just
we
great.
Sure showed those terrorists. We hit them in the balls.
Right? Even just watching her crawl on that crane gave me the numb feet. Heights are terrible, and I think they used them really well. Although, for the first time ever, when I'm watching her crawl on this crane, I noticed that there's a catwalk immediately beside her. And yet she's crawling around on the outside of the crane. And I was like, dude, you could be on the catwalk. That's a lot safer. You wouldn't fall off that.
I guess she just acted without thinking and then was like, oh man, I'm on the scary part.
Oh, so scary. That whole thing is really scary to me, even though obviously it's a movie. I hate the idea of anyone dangling so high up from anything. It makes me very nervous.
For me, it's after she drops and she's kind of like on the hood of the plane, and I was like, that's not safe. Now you're going to fall from that, and there's nothing to catch you.
Yeah.
Right? And she almost does. That's why Arnold has to take his seatbelt off and grab her arm. Very deadly. But yeah, eventually, that's Faisal's big moment where he kills the terrorists. And then Arnold shoots all the terrorists who were on the other lower floor, which is why I assume Dana didn't go down, because they mentioned that the 20th floor, there's like 20 terrorists. For some reason, they were split between floors.
Fair enough.
Which I like. You have to give it a lot of thought to get to that point, but I like the idea that they made it so that she had to go up. Because when people go up when they don't have to go up in movies, I'm always mad. I'm like, hey man,
horror movies, man.
Down's an option. That's where safety is. The police are there.
You guys aren't allowed to be like, oh, like in horror movies if you won't watch
I think she just
movies.
did. I think she just did.
Name a movie where that happens, Austin.
Scream.
Ooh, shit.
Isn't the door locked and that's why
Also
she's
Scream 2.
upstairs?
Also Scream 2.
Okay. Anywho, let's wrap it up with True Lies, because now it's a year later and Harry, Helen, and Dana are like the most well-adjusted family. Dana's wearing a dress, which means she's good now? ? And Helen has her hair down, which means she's not so repressed ? But we're just gonna let it go. They're a happy family now. I think a lot of stuff has come out. Communication, it's taken a year of healing and therapy, let's hope, but they're more or less on each other's side.
And now they're a spy family together. Well, not Dana, but husband and wife are both spies now.
Yep.
Yeah, we're hoping Dana at least knows something, because how else is she going to explain the events of what happened?
Seriously.
But yeah, Harry and Helen are Boris and Doris, and you know what they got to do? They got to go tango. Also, I know it's like 1990 whatever. You guys will tell me what year it was. I forget. But Helen's dress in the final scene, the best.
Yeah,
Did you guys see her dress? It was like sparkly as hell. It was great.
Yeah.
And Helen does a great tango. And they're in love. And they save the world for democracy. The end.
Yeah. Go America.
America!
So
I didn't see very many flags, though. I will say that. I didn't see that many propaganda flags.
No, this one was light on the propaganda, as far as...
Yeah, for how Jackie's movies tend to go.
Yeah.
Kate, you can't say that. The Rock was an American propaganda, was it?
In a different kind of way, I think.
Okay, you know what? Deal with it. I love it. I love it.
Oh, we made it through, you guys.
Yeah, we
made it through. Okay, so yeah, that was True Lies. I'm gonna give you guys some quotes. Is it time for quotes? Is it quote time?
It's always time for quotes.
Quote time.
Is it quote corner with Jackie? I don't know if you noticed, but there's one I think this is a very underrated moment that I think gets past most people if you're not watching it with subtitles, because Arnold Schwarzenegger is a mumbler. But he's translating to Jamie Lee Curtis what the terrorists are saying in their terrorist speech. And he's like, we're going to kill you, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, we're cool, we're badasses, blah, blah, blah. That's his translation of the Eric. I'm like, that's great. We're cool, we're badasses, blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what every terrorist is saying, right? Okay, this is my underrated Faisal moment. His line is classic. He goes, talking about the terrorists, he says, they call him the sand spider. And the director goes, why? And he says, probably because it sounds scary. I'm like, yes, Faisal, yes!
I did catch that one. I enjoyed that.
He's great. He's very deadpan. He's good. And then I like when Tom Arnold says, after he gives Harry the bugged purse with the tracker and transmitter and everything, he's like trying to talk to him about his marital problems. And he says, if you need to talk, speak into the purse. Which I loved. I am the only one laughing. Frig, I love it. And I also like another Tom Arnold line when he's listening to Simon's spiel, and he's they're both skeezy creeps. He's like, oh, I'm starting to like this guy. And then Arnold looks at him and he goes, oh, we still got to kill him. And they're like, ha, ha, ha. And that's it. Those are the quotes I kept.
I did laugh at that, Jackie. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The other quote I wrote down that you missed is after Arnold's killing a bunch of people in the terrorist cell, and Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of following behind him, and she just goes, "I married Rambo."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I chose not to include that one. I definitely wrote it down. I was like, I wonder if Arnold and Sly Stallone were buddies, and that was like a super hilarious dig at him or something.
Yeah, like
There
I
was
did.
some connection to Rambo. I read what it was, but now I can't remember what it was.
I don't know what the official connection is, but I just loved it as kind of like I can't call him any famous Schwarzenegger role because he can't exist in that world. So I don't know, Rambo.
That'd be great if she said I married Terminator. Be like, what?
Yeah. Like, wow, you're like the Terminator, and he like turns around
and winks, breaks the fourth wall. He's like, uh-oh.
Winks to camera. So this was the first movie that had a budget over $100 million. So I actually forgot to look up how much it made, but I'm going to assume it made bank.
I did, when I was looking up, it was the number 3 movie of the year.
Yeah.
I think it was in the 300 million territory.
Yeah, so it made a ton.
It definitely did break ground, I guess, for action. And I feel like it's aged pretty well, like the effects and stuff. Like you can see where the money went. This is the only James Cameron movie to be nominated for Best Visual Effects at the Oscars and not win. So I guess there's that. But
do you know who won that year?
94.
Probably Forrest Gump, I'm gonna guess.
For visual effects, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like CGI of time travel kind of stuff. Not literal time travel, but like him at different moments in history.
Yeah, sorry to put you guys on the spot. I just thought maybe someone knew.
Just take my guess as fact. Come on, guys.
It's incorrect, but you will appreciate it. Jurassic Park.
Ah, yeah.
Wrong year. Jurassic Park came out in 93, so it would have won at the Oscar ceremony that took place in 94.
In 94, so I should have been looking 95. No. That's my bad. It was Forrest Gump.
Damn, that was a smackdown.
Jen is right. It was Forrest Gump. No, that's my bad. I looked at the wrong year.
Dude, you have to keep every single second of that in because it makes Jen look so good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You can't throw out some Jurassic Park knowledge like I'm not going to know.
Fair enough.
God, that's impressive. I don't know anything about any of these. I'm always like, this is my favorite part of the podcast, is I learn things from Austin and Jen.
Apparently there's going to be a TV adaptation for Disney Plus.
Whoa.
What?
All the streaming services to be involved with True Lies. Disney?
I'm going to assume it's going to be like a spy show about a husband and wife and not have that much else in common.
I would hope so. The line when they're chasing Jamie Lee Curtis and Bill Paxton, and he like makes her put her head in his lap. The line from one of the helicopter operators is like, "Yeah, she's got her head in his lap. Yahoo!" That's the voice of James Cameron. So
that's so funny because I've always hated the way that guy that says that line because he goes Yahoo. Sounds so stupid. I've always been like, this guy has a terrible voice, and he's the director. That's great. Yahoo.
Yeah.
Yahoo.
That's pretty much all I got. Not a whole lot of exciting stuff. It is cool that it's the first movie with the $100 million budget. But yeah. So Jen, we kind of already touched on it, but what are some other movies that came out this year?
Yeah, so this movie came out in 94. As I mentioned, it was the 3rd top grossing film of the year, so huge box office success. It was only behind Forrest Gump and The Lion King, which are both amazing movies, so that makes sense. And then other iconic films of that year were Speed.
Yes! Oh, so good. Hey, you guys, guess what? Sorry. There's no Marines in that movie. It's cops.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to watch that one. Yeah, we're going to watch it.
There's going to be a Marine in the background somehow.
God damn it.
Anyway, yeah, Shawshank Redemption is also that year, and then Pulp Fiction and Clerks both came out, and that was kind of the beginning of like the American indie boom, so I thought that was interesting.
That's a good group of movies.
Yeah, it was another decent year. There was a lot of interesting stuff. Also, The Mask came out that year, which I wrote down just because I loved that movie as a child. I don't know if it holds up.
I have that song. I have one of the songs he sings on one of my running playlists. It's so great. Cuban Pete.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Yeah, I thought maybe someone would know it, but you can just cut it because nobody knows it except for me. Which is embarrassing.
So, highlights, lowlights?
Oh yeah, that's what we forgot to do.
Right.
Shit.
No, we're just doing them now, Austin. Come on.
Yeah, high points, low points.
High points, low points. My high point is Jamie Lee Curtis. That's it. She's really great. She makes this movie. If there was no Jamie Lee Curtis, I would not love this movie as much. That's 100%. And I mean, the low point is the super bummer that Eliza Deshku was abused. I can't get past that. It's too awful to contemplate this 12-year-old feeling so powerless around a bunch of high-powered adults. It feels really bad. So that kind of definitely spoils a lot of this movie. The end.
Yeah, so first of all, sorry for being the one to tell you that story about Eliza Deshku.
Yeah.
My high point is also Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she's genuinely great in this movie. She won a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Comedy for this movie, so we're not the only ones who think she is the best thing about this film. She's fantastic, and I love her always. And then, yeah, my low points. I guess I have to do the same low point, too. Like, I can get past, in a sense, the misogyny of the movie, because at least that's fake, but knowing that an actual child was abused, that's too real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a good way to describe the entire situation. You can almost forgive a lot of the dialogue and the character choices, but the other thing is unforgivable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're all kind of in agreement. Jamie Lee Curtis as the high point. Honestly, I didn't even think of a high point. There were a few good kills. There were a few good things that piqued my interest, but definitely Jamie Lee Curtis was the high point for me. And I mean, yeah, obviously the low point. That's like the ultimate worst thing about this, but really just the misogyny in general of this movie. Just I couldn't get past it.
Could you imagine if we were all like, the low point was a child being abused, and then you were like, the low point was that the lighting was off in one of the scenes?
We'd be like, oh, no. Austin, wow, read the room.
Definitely the abuse of the child would be the low point of this movie. But again, that's not a reflection on the movie as a whole, but it is hard to look past.
Yeah.
Should we rate it?
Sure.
I guess we have to.
I guess that's what we do here.
Austin, why don't you go first, since you were the one who was new to the film?
I hated it so much. 0 for enjoyment. I think the second half of the movie, I don't know, can we rate it in terms of which movie part?
No, overall.
Overall, maybe 0.5 then, because there were some redeeming qualities towards the end. And then, so I'll say 4 for quality for myself. Yeah.
Harsh.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'd say my enjoyment was probably around a 6 or a 7. There's a lot of really fun stuff in the movie, and my end thought was basically that it was just a cute, fun movie, but there's a lot in it that drags because it's so long, and then the kind of wife-spine plot points I didn't love, and that did take up a lot of time that could have been spent on more fun stuff. So that kind of knocks my enjoyment down a little, so it's about a 6 or a 7. And then for quality, yeah, I'd probably say it's a 7. It's a solid movie. It's a really good action comedy. There were some funny moments I really enjoyed. Really good action sequences. Don't have too many complaints.
Nice. My enjoyment watching the movie was a 10. 100%. Love this movie. Totally buy it. Love the Arnold Schwarzenegger's attempts at comedy and Jamie Lee Curtis's successful attempts at comedy. I just enjoy it. It's a nonstop thrill ride. Even though, it's too long. I will say that. I never noticed how long it was until this viewing. It's too long. But I don't find that it drags for me. I still am interested in what's going on. So I'm not complaining about the length. My post-podcast discussion enjoyment is a 0. This movie, I think, is ruined. And that's fine. This is not anyone's fault. Knowing this thing changes every bit of enjoyment I get out of it. So maybe I'll watch it again someday. I'm not sure. But at this point, I think it's effectively destroyed. In terms of quality of movie, I'm going to give it, for the time, a solid 8. 8 or 9. Because I thought the effects were really great. The stunts from height, stunts with a Harrier jet, the idea of having a Harrier jet because it can hover, which makes it different than any other jet, obviously. It's interesting the way they use it, and he catches her on it. All of this, I really thought they did a good job. So yeah, I give it a solid 8, 9. So guys, now that we've talked about True Lies, where do we stand on the friendometer?
I still consider you both close friends. I hope this hasn't damaged our relationship, Jackie especially.
Yeah, I vote that we're still friends. We'll see how it goes next week, but for now, still friends.
Good. Okay, great. So we're all agreed that we're still friends.
Okay.
The foundation may be a little damaged, but at this point, I still like you guys.
Yay!
Yay!
Friends.
Next week, I guess, to bring this a little bit more back up, we kind of took a turn for the depressing, but next week we're going to be watching Chicago. This is my pick. I think you've both seen it, but Jackie, you said it's been a long time. Don't remember it that well, so we're gonna count it because I think it's probably, I'm gonna show my hand here, but I think it's the best adaptation of a musical ever made, and I will die on that hill.
Wait, this is the one with Bridget Jones, right?
Yeah, Renee Zellweger and
Okay.
Catherine Zeta-Jones. So
Yeah, okay. I
we're
wasn't
gonna
sure
watch
if there was
that.
like another one before from like the 50s or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that wraps up talking about True Lies. That was a doozy.
Sure
But
was. That hurt.
I'm
That was a
sorry.
painful one for me.
Sorry, Jackie. So thanks again for listening, and join us next time when we talk about Chicago. Bye.